Sump guards are a basic and essential add-on for all rally cars. Even if you and I never do antics like this, you never know when you might need one. Most skid plates are scratch built to suit particular cars, and there are many designs and many materials that get used. You can see me make a sump guard for my off-road buggy out of Kevlar and carbon fibre in part 2 of the build in my playlist here. But a skid plate is part of your car you'd rather no one ever see. Just before I finished the muscle hatch conversion, I was reluctant to keep running the car in rally sprints because they're so hard on the suspension and bodywork. But having discovered the Civic felt better than ever on the dirt at the Nabiac Autocross since the swap, so I've decided to do more racing between the trees, where I had so much fun and success with this car when it was just a 4-cylinder. The change to a physically bigger engine and gearbox means I need to build a new sump guard underneath them to protect them. Having spent over $3,000 in putting this 6-speed limited slip diff gearbox from Canada, the last thing I want is a rock busting the casing. This gives me the opportunity to show you how to build your own skid plate for any front-wheel drive rally car. Start by figuring out where are the strong points on the car to which you can mount the sump guard. Most front-wheel drive cars will have lower wishbone mounting points you can use, and I strengthened their bolt holes years ago with a bit of extra plate. Now I've lengthened the bolt and hung 5mm thick strips off them. This will give me the rear mounting points for the sump guard. Next, I position a bar where it will just clear the lowest point, which is usually the exhaust, particularly in my case as I've increased the exhaust from 1.5 inches to 3 inches in diameter. This is 25mm square tubing and it needs to be thick-walled to stop it bending. Tying these two suspension points together also increases the strength of the front suspension and improves the handling of the car. I'm bolting the bar to the tabs for now. But they need to be welded to stop this hanger moving sideways. So I now have a rear mounting point for the skid plate that clears everything. In the past, I've mounted skid plates to the lower cross member, but these are just a skimpy lightweight bracket designed to hold the radiator and they bend up with impact. I've welded a thick-walled bar between the two front toe plates on my car, which you can unbolt so that you can weld it properly, and then I've diagonally braced it back to the chassis rails. Get the profile for your skid plate by bending up a piece of 25mm flat steel. You want it to be about 15 to 20 mils from everything, because this is inevitably going to bend up after racing. To be the same strength as steel, aluminium needs to be 4 times as thick. So even 5mm aluminium just won't cut it. This is not a weight saving exercise, it's a protection exercise. Copy the bend points onto a piece of 3mm steel. Mark the line. And put a few cuts in it with your angle grinder with a thin blade so the blade just goes through. I'll put about 5 cuts in this, one in the middle, one there, one either side. That will aid bending. Find a solid straight edge you can clamp a plate to, like I've done the my car trailer. Put a piece of steel over the top to get a nice flat edge, and you'll find you can bend that by hand fairly easily. With the plate loosely in test position, work out where you can put strengthening strips to help keep the sump guard flat. I prefer to not cut holes for the drain plugs in the skid plate because these tend to catch on rock ledges. Race cars don't do many kilometres in a year, so I prefer to just drop the sump plate to change the oil when I do my annual tear-down inspection. I put 40mm flat edges, angled out a bit, on both sides to strengthen that bend. I can put a 25mm rib underneath the gearbox, and here I'll put just a short little rib to strengthen that bend, because that bend is where most of the impact is going to be taken front on. Because I haven't got enough room to put some flat in the upright position underneath the engine, I'm going to weld in a piece of 40mm flat and I'll put it in horizontally. I prefer to put all my strengthening ribs on the top of the plate so the underside is completely smooth. Another popular way of reinforcing a sump guard is to put angle iron on the underside. I don't like to do that on my sedan rally cars because of ground clearance issues, but on a four-wheel drive or a car or a buggy with high ground clearance, and where that's not an issue, that's a really good way of making a slider and reinforcing. And of course you can use anything if you want. You could even use a piece of steel rod or Rio either on the top or the underside to strengthen it as well. The skid plate's fully welded up. Got the upright rib underneath the gearbox with the strengthening to the front, the flat rib to go underneath the engine with the front rib, and the holes in the side ribs will allow me to cable tie polyboard onto the side and keep most of the dirt out from the engine bay. Well, some of it anyway. And you can see where I've welded up the slots that I cut to make bending easier. On the underside, it's as smooth as a baby's well, it's about as smooth as Kim Kardashian's arse, but it's not quite that big. One last thing. Remember, old rally skid plates never die. They just come back as funny shaped barbecue plates. Thanks for watching.